we're talking about data science, and we kind of, are in a program that maps many different fields together. I I often show a slide in the beginning that tries to explain what data science is. So data scientist is a data analyst living in California, and maybe in Tel Aviv nowadays. And I've seen a lot of people that talk about three different types of roles in data science. Data analyst that looks more into like the data, the BI, statistical analysis. Data researcher, I would call it, or maybe data scientist that is more interested in like applying and developing powerful models, and data engineer that is responsible for bringing the data and making sure that it's available for all of the models. Do you see this division into three roles today? Do you think that in the future we'll have to know all of them? Will there be created more different roles and specialties created? How do you see the different landscape in 5 years from now?
Do you want to start? So there is kind of divergence between the roles themselves, right? Because machine learning engineer is another thing, and algorithm developer is another thing. So the naming convention, it's really changing around us, and new professions are being made. Specifically, it's my opinion as a data scientist. I often do also the data engineering. So I'm bringing the data, I'm cleaning the data, I know how the data looks. I'm doing statistical analysis on top of it, as some would say that this is a data analyst job. But it really helps me to get familiar with the data, to build the right solution for it, to better know how to consume it, what are the constraints that I have. Perhaps I have a scale issue that I have to tackle, and I don't want that the data engineer will tell me to do it, because apparently I need to make my model more robust. Even, let's say, deploying a model, working with services like Amazon AWS and Docker images, it's not the work that I should be doing, right? I'm supposed to do to build machine learning algorithms, and that's it. But that's never the case. So I think that eventually people will be like all-in-one persons. Of course, that each one will have their own expertise, but you cannot be a good data scientist without knowing how to bring your own data, clean your own data, perform statistical analysis on top of it, and to at least deploy it in a minimum level. So that's what I see as in my day-to-day job now.
So I think this division only exists in very large demanding projects. Because in small projects, it's kind of, you can handle everything on your own. But in large projects, at least it's always good to have really good data engineer. Imagine that you have satellite imagery on multiple bands for like middle-sized European country. It takes a lot of space. And then on top of that, you have quite complex geospatial queries. You need to get a lot of different stuff. You have raster layers, you have vector layers, and all of that. It's all complex. And usually data scientists and even machine learning engineers, who are kind of something between data scientist and software developer, cannot organize really efficient storage, which will work good on all the queries and all of that. So in that aspect, it's always good to have good data engineer in team, especially if you have huge data. And that's not only for imagery, that's for time series, that's definitely for any images if you have a lot of them. That's also for user data if it's tabular, because you may structure it very differently so that queries will be either very fast or very slow, it depends. As for division between data scientists and machine learning engineer, that's more debatable probably. It depends on a task. So sometimes backend developers can handle that just fine. to put your algorithms to production. Sometimes that's you who should do that. In reality, it's always, of course, good to know something from everything and be a really good, focused professional in one field, for example, machine learning. But you should be able to kind of, deploy Docker, run SQL query. That's not something that you will ask someone else. Okay, run this query for me. I do not know how to formulate this SQL. That just does not look right, and that's not efficient, first of all. So to summarize, the borders are blurry. Sometimes, yes, there is a different profession like data engineering. Everything else is more intertwined and mixed, I would say.
Yeah, I think I agree that the borders are blurry and there's something, but maybe that might change with time. Two messages that I have that are somewhat really relevant to this. One is to, I would say, call it respect the task. I mean, you often see that people do so individual small things within a big picture, but actually no one has the big picture, right? So you may build a classifier to differentiate between cats and dogs, but then this is used in some recommendation platform that does, where the goal is something completely different, right? So I think it's really important to understand what you want the end goal to be, what is the product that you want to build, and what are the technologies and what you need to do towards that, and not get stuck in some mini goal that might not be relevant to the whole thing. Another, I think, something that I found useful is to, at least for one project, master all the details. So, I sometimes tell my students to, I could tell my students to go and build some model and not care about the data, not look at the data or the code or anything. I always find it much more useful to get into the details and to maybe even build things myself and to see where they fail. And I think always invariably, if you get into the details, you learn about the big picture as well. So I think it's, as an experience, it's good to take a product from beginning to end and to really master all the details inside.
Yes, so I totally agree, so I won't repeat. I'll just say something about how the industry sees. We have in the community a job board that a lot of companies publish their job, and I see that companies that becoming to grow, as mentioned here, are starting to separate those jobs, and it's funny to see, and you can see more and more demand of good data engineers. So most of the jobs, it's still data science or data researchers, but as you keep getting bigger and bigger and data is more complex or you have a huge amount, you have to have specific people that this is their jobs. So I totally agree that if you're a data scientist, the best thing for you is to know a little bit from every task, from everything that you need to do. But I think when the company is starting to grow, you have to separate those tasks and have a champion on each task, and you can see it from the job board that actually I can see that companies that are now 100, 200 people that have several research in their team are now starting to split because you have to do it. It's mandatory. Otherwise, it's getting all mess.